8-Bit stands for justice and equal rights for all. We believe every human being deserves the right to live without fear and prejudice. Fuck racism.
Round 1. Fight.
Heroes never die.
I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite store on the Citadel.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
Power, sex, power. They both come down to one thing.
Hungry gamers.
Hello, and welcome, boys and girls, to the 197th episode of the Hungry Gamers podcast. We're powered by ATEBIT.net and those sexy legends over at Audio Technica. I'm your extremely humble host, Brendan White. You can find me just about everywhere at Brendan 8-Bit. And joining me today, the Muggsy Bogues and Alonzo Mourning to the Larry Johnson that I call myself. We are talking Miss Ellie Hart. You can find her at Miss Ellie Hart. And joining us as well, very special guest, host of One Perfect Game and 8-Bit's best and only NBA podcast, Hoop Dreams. You can be found at It's Tilby. Matt Tilby, Miss Ellie Hart, welcome to episode 197. How the hell you bloody doing?
I'm very, very excited. This is the time that you get to ask me all the questions instead of me doing all the work this time. So, no, I'm excited. Like, this is obviously the flagship podcast for 8-Bit, so I'm excited to jump on and have a bit of a chat.
We are very excited to have you here, and I must interject too. I do a little bit of work on Hoop Dreams, a little, not much, but I'll admit I do some things, not all the time, but sometimes.
Ask, what was the reference? What was the introduction? Is it sports ball?
So you said you're a 90s basketball fan, so I thought you might get the reference. I said Muggsy Bogues, Alonzo Mourning, and Larry Johnson. So
I knew Johnson.
The sort of three-headed machine from the 90s era Charlotte Hornets, rocking those baby blue or light bluey coloured jerseys,
like
which we all love so much. I guess aquary could be defined, but yeah, one of the prolific trios from that era, outside of doing, the Jordan, Rodman, Pippen sort of stereotype. I thought we'd have some fun because you're the smaller one out of the three of us here, Miss Hart. So I thought you could be little Muggsy. You got those mad sort of ball skills. You could be our point guard. Oh no, oh no, sorry about that. Anyway,
John Peck would be ashamed of you, Ali.
That's why he doesn't come back to the
ashamed
podcast.
of me. Yeah, so anyway, let's park that and move very, very far forward from this discussion about the Hornets. It's great that they've finally got their name back, though, I must say, after years of being the Bobcats, but that's a story for another day. So Tilby, yes, Matt Tilby, as I mentioned, he hosts One Perfect Game and also is the chairman of Hoop Dreams, which is 8-Bit's best and only NBA podcast. Mate, do you want to give us the elevator pitch, give us your origin stories, tell us a bit about yourself for the listeners that may or might not know who you are or may not have seen you lurking around on them socials, obviously at It's Tilby?
Yeah, I mean, I've been jumping around for a little bit, only for about, I want to say, 12 months on the 8-Bit Collective, there or thereabouts. A 27-year-old uni student, or graduated a couple of years ago, and I've been looking for anything in journalism and sort of just fell into podcasting and sort of started One Perfect Game as a bit of a hobby project, a labor of love, so to speak. And it was basically just getting someone on to talk about a game that they felt had influenced their personal life or their career, to some sort of varying degree. We've had, people in the YouTube sphere, we've had musicians, we've had comedians. It's interesting to see how different people's, I guess, ideas of what makes a game so important to them. But it sort of brings together that because people are so different, games do have that sort of wonderful effect of bringing them together and creating these really awesome possibilities. So that was how I met you and Jono and sort of was introduced to 8-Bit, and because of our love of basketball, we just decided to get together, have a chat, and we formed Hoop Dreams, which is the least pop culture thing on 8-Bit, it seems, at this point in time. So, but yeah, no, Hoop Dreams is very much yeah, basketball, anything and everything basketball. We just did a fantastic little episode arc on The Last Dance, which was a fantastic documentary on Netflix all about Michael Jordan. If you hadn't seen it, I mean, you probably would have heard about it. Go and check it up. But yeah, no, we talk, fantasy basketball, news. We have some debates, which I'm normally wrong about. Yeah, it's always a lot of fun to jump in and talk basketball with you boys.
It is good, and Hoop Dreams, I think, is delivered in a way that's accessible to hardcore fans and casual fans, which is something that I'm happy we're able to execute, because there is a lot of depth with the game of basketball, specifically tied to the NBA. So if you aren't a sort of rabid fan that watches and embraces everything you can on your team or that chosen sport, it's a good way to get in, get some entertainment, get some information, get some updates, and some, as you said, some hot takes that might not always be 100% correct, but they're going to be at least 100% full of value and potential talking points, that's for sure. But yeah, that Last Dance arc you did was really, really well put together. Had a few guests joining us on that one too. And looking forward to getting back into the swing of things on that once the season finals and obviously the exhibition matches before that kick off sort of tail end of next month or so. So yeah, life is becoming a little bit more normal for the sporting tragics out there. But yeah, I guess we could pivot into the staple, the usual sort of entry point we go to with the Hungry Gamers here and talk about what we've been playing. I figure we'll go ladies first. Ali, Muggsy Bogues Hart, what you been up to this week?
I've actually been binge watching after me flaunting my ability to access HBO Max and rubbing into all Australians' faces. I actually binge watched True Detective season 1.
Best season of the 3.
Everyone has recommended it to me. They've said it's very much a show that you would like. And I'm like, okay, it's kind of slow and I was a bit worried. But after a while, it really picked up. And by the end of it, I could totally tell why everyone recommended it to me. It was really, really good. I absolutely loved it.
Have you watched the second or third seasons yet?
I started watching the second season and I turned it off.
Yeah, the second season was still an okay watch, but compared to what Woody and McConaughey did in the first season, it's night and day.
It's not the same. I'm assuming people recommended it to me originally because of the movies that I enjoy and the TV shows I enjoy. And yeah, it's usually pretty gritty, like Seven is like one of my favorite movies of all time. So I could definitely see that link with season 1. However, season 2 really got on the wrong foot with starting with a really bad song.
Yeah.
So
yeah, season 3 returns to form.
Does.
It's sort of slightly, it's not at the same tier as 1, but it's sort of slightly under, and then 2's sort of down here in the dirt.
Can I skip 2?
Yeah, you can. They're all completely standalone in their own capsule, so you could completely jump over 2 and get onto 3.
I might.
Yeah, I'd skip Vince Vaughn personally if I were you. So.
Well, maybe I will.
Yeah, look, Mahershala Ali is not too bad in that role as well when he joined in. So, yeah, look, I think if you want to skip over season 2, I wouldn't have any complaints with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Like, I've got to say, I'm a big fan of Woody Harrelson. Like, I love everything that he does and he ever will do. Like, I absolutely love Natural Born Killers, which he was in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And how good's Robert Downey Jr. as the Aussie in that movie?
We could just start a whole other podcast about that movie, really. But the one magical thing this series did was actually made me appreciate Matthew McConaughey. I couldn't stand that guy.
He's a good actor.
I don't know why. Every time, like, I've seen him in something, like, I've just kind of been like, like, maybe it's because I read that he always had in his contract that he got to take his shirt off. Like, that was always in his contract, but...
If I look like that, I'd try and put that into my work contract. I'd just be like in a meeting. I was going to say,
didn't surprise me.
Here.
But this like TV show, Clean Slate, Matthew McConaughey is fantastic. Yeah, so thank you to everyone who recommended it to me. If you are a person that hasn't seen it yet and has the opportunity to watch it, do it. I watched all of it in 2 days. So
yeah, it's a belter.
It's only 8 episodes.
No, yeah, I think it's only 8. It's only an 8 arc, and I think season 2 might be similar in 3 as well. Sadly, no HBO Max over here. Obviously, you get your HBO fix via Foxtel or Binge. So I signed up to Binge this week. You get a 14-day free trial, and you get pretty much the same smattering of HBO stuff on there as well at a massively reduced price compared to the theft that Foxtel does to your wallet every month. So that's a plus. But I see you've also gone back, turned the nostalgia clock back here as far as what you've been playing.
So I was like going through the Game Pass, Xbox Game Pass, and then I saw Perfect Dark, and it didn't register as being the one that I played on Nintendo 64 because she didn't look like her. But I'm like, it looks like it might be it, so I installed it, and I didn't realize that they like upped the graphics, like they remastered it and they, you know, smoothed everyone out essentially. Playing it on with an Xbox controller, it was really iffy. I don't remember the aiming being so like off.
It's a bit twitchy from what I can remember playing this. Like, it's real snappy, the aim.
Yeah, it's like snappy, but then also not controlled.
Yeah, but you sort of taking a shot at how it controls on an Xbox controller as opposed to what it would have been on a Nintendo 64 three-prong of doom trident controller. Come on now.
A lot of us got used to that pretty quickly. We all know the weird like little hand movement that we all had to do where, you know, grasping the friggin' three-fingered claw that was, you know, the Nintendo 64 controller. But I mean, it's more like playability. Like I said, like aiming, I felt like it was helping me, and then not, like it was taking your pointer directly off it. But in regards to playing it again and then having the ability to see the characters a bit more clearly and the audio being, I don't know actually if the audio was improved, but I mean, went down memory lane, and if it wasn't for the controls, I probably would have kept going and tried to finish it again. But I mean, it was kind of fun to play kind of for the nostalgia trip, but I don't know if I will dedicate full-on gameplay to it. But yeah, and I'm thinking about also playing Banjo-Kazooie, so...
Damn, you're going just through all the rare classics.
Yeah, I mean...
The rare replay stuff is really solid. I picked it up when it came out purely for that nostalgia factor to play Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, but also Blast Corps was on that
I remember that
list
game.
of games, and that was a big one for me in my childhood. So yeah, had a lot of fun with that series. Kind of cool that they brought a couple of them back onto Game Pass as well. So look, I would be lying if I said I didn't pick up Banjo-Tooie on Game Pass as well to play that. So
yeah, I never played it. Never played Tooie.
Never played it. You need to.
Yeah,
it's a massive step up from the first one.
Really,
both in quality, but also in like difficulty. Yeah, it really ramps up.
I just assumed it like because Banjo-Kazooie was like the hype game, like, you know, the one that everyone played, everyone loved, everyone, you know, had nostalgia with. I just assumed that Tooie wasn't as great.
Yeah, it's easier to jump into the first one, but like if you're looking for that natural progression and wanting something a little bit more, I guess, more of a time sink, like this takes way more hours. So, but I'm still hooked on it. Like I love it. Yeah,
I'll have to give it a go now. Now that like someone actually said it was actually good.
What do you think the odds are that Microsoft have been working with Rare in the background for an announcement for some of these sort of rare classics to be reimagined, or like a sequel, or just a new reboot on some of these titles on the Series X? Like Perfect Dark was one of the bigger FPS titles back in the day, and obviously Banjo's another one. Obviously we're getting Battletoads and stuff like that too, but like you'd think there'd be some hunger for a brand new Banjo or a brand new Perfect Dark. Like in this climate, like everyone loves a good platformer, and you can see the hype from the remasters with Crash and Spyro, and obviously what they're doing with Mario on Nintendo these days. Like I think people would go bonkers for a bit of Banjo, or even a new Conkers.
Yeah.
I think there's always been a demand for a new Banjo game, I feel like, and that sort of manifested itself into, I guess, the creation of Yooka-Laylee from the old sort of Rare devs or people who worked on the Banjo game, because you can see it's essentially Banjo-Kazooie with a third Banjo-Kazooie game with a different coat of paint. But I agree. Like I think if they could revive some of those games and get them either remastered or a new reboot for them, so to speak. I feel like people would eat that sort of stuff up. Like there was, I think it wasn't Ghosts and Goblins, that's a completely different company altogether, but there was a lot of stuff on that Rare Replay disc. Like there's 30 games there. Like they can certainly work something out, even if it is just a small collection of remastered or reimagined games. I think that'd be perfect.
Like I'm having a look just through their games list they've done, and obviously they've been around for quite a substantial amount of time, since the 80s, but like obviously Sea of Thieves is their bread and butter at the moment, which they're continuing to service. But outside of that, like Rare Replay and then sort of Killer Instinct and Connect Sports Rivals, they were one of sort of the studios that got pushed down that Connect route when that was a big thing. But outside of that, they haven't done much. But yeah, like Viva Pinata, Conquer, Grab by the Ghoulies might be the one you could be thinking of. Potentially Tilby, which is great wordplay in itself, because anyone that knows some good slang, the Ghoulies is like slang for your testes. So, but they're using wordplay with ghoul as the phrasing there, which I'm all about a good pun. So,
I mean, I'd be happy if they kind of did Perfect Dark. Like, I don't see why that couldn't be made in the current climate, and new graphics, first-person shooter, female lead. Maybe not.
Seems perfect. I mean, like, there's that guy who's, I think, was making that HD remake of GoldenEye 64. I believe that got either taken down or was sort of like publicly distanced from Rare, because they were like, this isn't our doing here. So, but I just miss the Moonraker laser, like having a couple friends around, 4-player multiplayer.
Give me that slappers only.
I was gonna say lasers only, and just bang bang, or proximity mines or whatever, and just going to town on it. That was always a lot of fun. But yeah, I think like a Perfect Dark reboot could easily work on if it was an Xbox exclusive or something. Like obviously the climate is good for first person shooters at the moment, so yeah, it'd be worth a shot.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I'd play
curious to see. Like they're doing really well with Sea of Thieves, obviously, which seems to be going from strength to strength with every new release and update. They've got a pretty good, rabid and dedicated fan base now, which is great, because those games as a service, it's always interesting to see if they're going to survive.
Yeah. But
it looks like they've sort of calmed the sea out there and sort of riding off into the sunset, which is cool because it's good fun. Like I've fallen off it, and that's no negative shot towards the game. I really enjoyed my time with Sea of Thieves, but it just happens. New game comes out, the new shiny thing takes your attention, and then you sort of forget about the previous shiny thing you enjoyed so much. So I'm happy to see other people still loving that Sea of Thieves, though.
Yeah, I mean, they've got their community now. I unfortunately can't play it alone because I can't stand being in the ocean.
Open water.
Yeah, like that scares the shit out of me. So, but yeah, like they've got a massive community, like a massive Sea of Thieves community out there. So I'm glad it worked.
Yeah, like I've got friends who still play it on the reg pretty regularly, and I hadn't really played it since it sort of like first came out for its major release, purely because I was sort of the same. Like I didn't have a lot of friends to play it with at the time, and playing it by yourself can get a little tiresome, but I think it's definitely a game you play with friends. But yeah, like you said, like it's going from strength to strength. It certainly helps when you've got ads for your patch updates being marketed by Matt Berry, doing it in his sexy English accent. So
I didn't know that.
That's always a help. Yeah, he did this ad for Microsoft, and he's in his nice crevasse and has his nice fancy suit on and everything, and you've got to look it up. Yeah, it's very funny. Yeah, but yeah, look, I think keep going with it. If anything, like Sea of Thieves obviously has its market, and it's going pretty well, so why not keep going with it?
I just like that they're fleshing it out more and more with each subsequent release. Like there's more customization. There's now, you can have your pets with you, your birds and your cats and things like that. There's more things you can do to your ship. There's more story that you can unearth and more lore that you can sort of find through diaries and interactions with other NPCs in the game. And yeah, it's just good fun. I think it's just one of those games you can just lose hours upon hours doing nothing too. Like just the rigmarole of steering and captaining a ship with your friends. is enough. Like, and obviously the water is phenomenal. The water effects and just the look of it,
A little
rare
too
of
good.
knocked out of the park from a fidelity point of view for the water. But yeah, a little too
It's a
good for
little too
the
good.
phobias out there. But yeah, Maddie, what about you? What have you been playing? I see you got a few things here on the docket.
Yeah, I was hoping to come into today's recording not saying, completely that I was playing Animal Crossing for like 10 hours straight. And I've done that, thankfully. I mean, I'm still playing Animal Crossing.
Stay
It's great.
strong.
I'm sure you'll have that discussion in a sec. But no, I decided to mix it up a little bit over my isolation break. And I've thankfully been able to do so. First one was Void Bastards.
How is that?
Which is it was released first on Windows and Xbox, sort of around this time last year, and then it just got ported to PS4 and Switch, which is sort of the reason why I went back and picked up the Xbox version on Game Pass. And it's very good. I'm pleasantly surprised. It's made by an Australian company called Blue Manchu.
Great name, by the way.
Great name.
Fantastic name.
It's an interesting sort of design. It's. Do you remember a first person shooter on the PS2 era called 13? Very sort of like cell shaded, comic booky, sort of action adventure sort of style first person shooter. Very similar to that. They call it a roguelike first person shooter because it's very much. There's a lot of strategy to it. It's weird because the story is you're sort of like a rehydrated prisoner and you're sort of going from ship to ship trying to salvage parts for weapons and to sort of venture into the galaxy, but also you've got to take a real good look at how much food and fuel you have, because if you run out of food you actually start losing health, and if you run out of fuel you actually can't move anymore, so you have to stay where you are, and if you're not at a ship when your fuel runs out you're pretty much dead. So you've got to sort of hop from ship to ship and sort of encounter all these baddies and try and figure out the best route to whatever item you're looking for and get out alive. You've only got a certain amount of CO2 in your canister. So there's a lot of strategy in terms of, do I go to this ship and pick this up and risk running into the plentiful amount of monsters that are on this ship, or do I risk it, skip past this ship, lose health, and then go to the ship that doesn't have a lot of monsters and may have less fuel and just encounter less monsters and save, not dying essentially, because when you die, you're going right back to the beginning again. You're regenerated as a new prisoner, but you keep all of the weapons and upgrades that you've got. So you're sort of learning what you're doing. You learn from your mistakes and you start back at the beginning again. Like I've played maybe 6 to 8 hours of it at this point in time, and I probably haven't even got past what is essentially the first major mission, because there's a lot of strategy to it, and I'm still sort of working things out. But man, it's a lot different to what I normally play, but it's very interesting.
I like that they've taken that formula and sort of merged it with that FPS sort of aesthetic, because you don't really see that with this genre. And the art style, like, I haven't played it yet. I have downloaded it on Game Pass as well. Shout out to Xbox and Microsoft for that again. But I just look, every time I look at it, I just think of like old school 90s cartoons. Like I think of like Scooby-Doo and the Ghostbusters cartoon and stuff. Like that's the art aesthetic that I pull from it all the time, with the creatures and the sort of color palette choice and things like that. Like it looks so cool, and it's so unlike anything else out there. Do you remember? Did you guys ever watch that movie A Scanner Darkly?
Yes.
Yeah, I get vibes.
I get some vibes of that from this too.
Yeah, it's because it's styled. The actual game is sort of styled like a comic book, because when you die, it'll actually show like panels of you hitting the ground. It'll say thud, and when you're walking around in the ships, you can actually sort of trace monsters' footsteps coming past you by. You can hear like thud thud or tap 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 through doorways. You can actually see the little words pop up to
That's
sort of
cool.
indicate
That's
there's
really
a monster
cool.
possibly nearby, or a squelch if there's like a jelly monster or whatever sort of coming past you or whatnot. So yeah, it's definitely got that sort of 90s comic book style, which I think is very cool. But it's easy to get distracted in that sense, because it's difficult. Yeah, I've died far too many times, to be honest, but still loving it, and I'm still trying to get that ID card and the printer scanner so I can finally start up my ship and get a little bit further into the galaxy.
It looks so good, and it's awesome to see an Aussie developer having some success, because you just look at the reception it's received around the traps, and on Steam, obviously it's very positive with its over nearly 2,500 reviews, and it's sitting at very positive. Now that it's part of Xbox Game Pass, will open itself up to more sort of players and whatnot, and it's nice to see. And also, Blue Manchu gets me every time.
Great name.
Every time.
Absolutely great.
I think the only sort of downside to it is it probably is a little bit repetitive. Just the idea of sort of jumping from ship to ship to ship to do the same thing, and obviously each ship is procedurally generated, so it's all random from each ship. But I mean, it's only a small downside to it. I've been loving it so far.
Yeah. I see a few other games you've been playing. Have you been loving these ones as well?
Sure have. MLB The Show 20. I did a review for it on the 8-Bit YouTube page if you want to go and have a look at that one. But this might be the best sports sim I've ever played, like hands down.
Okay.
Yeah, it probably doesn't get the sort of love that people deserve to give it, because not only in Australia, baseball probably isn't as big a sport as, say, NBA or FIFA, and also because it's a PlayStation exclusive, so it probably isn't reaching the wider audience that it deserves to reach. But it's so full of stuff. Like, graphically looks great, plays great, but I think what wins out is just how much there is to do. You've obviously got your normal season modes, your Be a Pro, where you take yourself from the lower leagues up into Major League Baseball, which is normally my bread and butter. There's moments modes where you're playing sort of little scenarios from history. Normally, if the season was going on, like, because obviously the season's been paused because of the COVID situation, they would normally update it sort of every week with scenarios from the week that just happened. So let's say like Bryce Harper hits 2 home runs in one game. You've got the amount of at-bats you get because you're player locked to Bryce Harper. You need to recreate that sort of situation, and you'll get rewards for cleats and things that you can use in other modes in the game. And
that's cool.
There's so much to do. Like it can. You hold your hand as well. Like if you're only a novice to baseball games like this, you can hold your hand and you can play with more aids, I guess, in that sort of sense. But if you want that sort of full experience, you just play it as it is, and it's fantastic. Like, I mean, I love baseball, so it's always been something I've been picking up every sort of year. But yeah, I think it's by far one of the better sort of sports sims on the market, and one of the best I've ever played. Yeah.
Wow.
That's some big praise. Like, it's still strange to me that it's a PlayStation 4 exclusive. Like, you think MLB would have tried to go industry wide and get Xbox, and whether it be on PC as well, or if they can port a lesser version to a Switch to try and maximize the player base and the earning potential of this. Like, I do love me some baseball. I don't think I could grip my way through 160 plus game season, plus the finals, plus working through AA to AAA and everything like that, starting as a rook. But it's cool to see, and yeah, to hear that you're sort of putting it up there as one of the best sports sims of all time. Like, that's no small praise. Like, that's pretty hefty, because there's been a lot of good sports games out there. Things like Red Card Soccer goes down as one of the best sports games of all time. Just being able to kick people in the nuts.
I'm more of a sensible soccer man myself, personally.
Okay.
But
no, give me the nut shots any day.
Yeah. I mean, full credit to San Diego Studios, the guys who create the game every year. Like, they've been able to sort of slowly add to it year by year by year. You can sort of see that sort of stuff happening with NBA 2K, to a lesser extent FIFA. But yeah, no, they certainly add to it, pretty regularly every year, and they've been finding new ways to enhance the online experience. Diamond Dynasty is sort of like the ultimate team mode, where you'll earn cards to fill out your team and not only that, like it's the same as NBA 2K, where you can actually earn historical players. Like you can have Jackie Robinson and Babe Ruth. And
Can you get all the steroid users and just make an all juice team?
The Bash Brothers.
no word on whether I can find Barry Bonds yet, but maybe his card will just have a big asterisk on it.
Yeah,
We'll see
bit of
what
Bonds,
happens.
bit of Mark McGuire.
Yeah,
Give me all them roid users.
socking some dingers, but no, look, I absolutely love it. Like for me, when I've just got a bit of spare time, I'll chuck that on and play a couple games. And there's also like there's a mode where it's like March to October, which is like a season sort of condensed into maybe like a couple of moments where you'll play maybe like the 7th to the 9th inning, and you've got a scenario where you've got to finish off strong. You've come from behind, or you play lock to one player, and if you play well with that player, you'll get a season long boost for that player. So there's a cavalcade of modes. It's deep. Yeah, it's deep. It's very deep. I'm absolutely enthralled with it.
I gotta ask you both, especially you, Miss Hart, now that you're on the ground over in the baseball mecca of the United States, or outside obviously like Japan. It's probably the biggest in the world. But what's the teams you guys are barracking for? Have you got a team you get behind in the MLB?
I'll let Ali go first for that one.
Oh, mine's the Padres.
I thought it was going to be.
I have two technically.
You're one of those guys.
Look, first and foremost, I'm a Los Angeles Angels fan.
Okay.
They were the first baseball game I ever went to see. So instant affinity with them. But I'm also a bit of a closet Philadelphia Phillies fan.
Okay.
Got big love for Philadelphia, having been there. So yeah, I try not to say it too loudly, but I can support both when I can.
Yeah. Like I guess I'm going to sort of contradict what I just said about you. I'm a Blue Jays boy just because I sort of owe Canada. But also I've got a little bit of a soft spot for the Cubs as well, just because I saw my first game I saw over there, and they were trash for many, many years, and obviously had the curse, but they've finally broken that. But yeah, the Blue Jays are my homeboys. And
Come on,
yeah.
boys, pick one team. It's not that difficult. I mean, I only picked mine because it's home turf, and my knowledge of baseball is just hot dogs and margarita mix cans. So I only get wasted at baseball games is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
because they go for so long.
So long. So long.
But anywho, let's keep rocking and rolling. One last game you've been playing. I just wanted to get your thoughts on how Borderlands The Handsome Collection has been playing on that Nintendo Switch.
It's pretty good. I'm surprised. I was sort of a bit worried hearing the news about the Outer Worlds port for the Switch and how it sort of graphically came off like a smacked asshole. But
that's a pretty precise smack to be able to get between the cheeks. Like you almost have to ask them to sort of, hey, just spread them real butt cheeks a minute. Let me get in here.
Maybe not the terminology I was looking for, but no, it certainly holds up very well. I think the cell shaded sort of style of Borderlands probably lends itself to being a little bit less graphically optimized, but yeah, no, like the frame rate is pretty good and it runs pretty well. I've only sort of scraped the surface of it. Yeah, in the first game, sort of only about 4 or 5 hours on it. But yeah, currently doing a review for that for 8-Bits YouTube as well. So you'll see a bit more of me talking about that soon. But yeah, positive things so far. I haven't really jumped into it when it came out on console. I sort of escaped the hype of all of that somehow, but yeah, no, I'm enjoying it a lot so far, and we'll see how we go. Nice.
Who did you pick as your Vault Hunter? Who are you playing as? I'm going to say Brick.
I was going to say Brick. Yeah, I went Brick.
Nice. Who would you cast him as in the movie coming up? We know we've got Cate Blanchett as Lilith. Who are you going with, Brick?
I was going to say Dwayne Johnson. As big as you can get, but I guess you could even go. What's the name of the guy who played the Mountain in Game of Thrones?
Oh, Bjorn somethingson.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably as close as you could get physically.
Maybe like a Batista. Batista's a bit of a big unit.
Yeah, true. Now that's not a bad pick. He's certainly jumped into movies now that he's stopped wrestling. But That's actually not a bad idea, yeah. Yeah, there's certainly a lot of choices more than now that I think about it.
Who you casting as Brick Miss Hart?
We've already talked about this before.
I know. We're going full circle.
Yeah, and you took my answer. Batista.
Yeah, maybe Tom Hardy could work in that role. Tom Hardy gets pretty staunch. I know you don't like him. I just wanted an excuse to throw him in there to wind you up. All right, Nadia's been playing more Apex Legends, but don't need to talk about that. It's still going well, and console, much easier to play on the PC. But let's move on to this next part.
iTunes Review of the Week.
And this review comes via way of iTunes user ChubbyDoug, and based here in the AU. And the review headline reads, "Staying hungry," and he gave us that tasty 5 stars. And the review was nice, short, clear and concise, and it just says, "Love what you guys bring each and every week." Full stop.
Very nice.
ChubbyDoug, I respect you, and I hope that that chubbiness is treating you well. As a heavier set man like myself too, I can understand where you're coming from, but thank you for taking the time to write a review for us here on the Apple Podcast charts. Those reviews mean the world to us. Obviously, they help keep those emotional lights on in our hearts. Be sure to rate, review, subscribe us, as well as all the podcasts in the hashtag 8bit Collective and all the other podcasts you're just listening to out there on the reg, because these reviews mean the world, keep us relevant, keep us tracking, and just keep us hungry to keep doing what we're doing. So, just take some time, takes no money. And, as I said, it can mean an awful lot to podcasters like ourselves. But ChubbyDoug, you're the best. But let's get into a little bit more housekeeping before we do a bit more news. So obviously, 8bitnation.net, shop8bit.net, youtube.com/We Are 8bit to check out those video reviews that Tilby is starting to churn out as well, to find all the latest and greatest in the 8bit universe. Obviously, those hubs, or even just 8bit.net is another good central hub there. It's our main website, obviously. So, stay up to date with all the other happenings in the hashtag 8bit Collective. We've got a new episode of the Hungry Game Show dropping this week, going full circle and tying in some of that Borderlands flavor. We're covering Borderlands 2 with the streaming sensation known as Subpar Lover.
Ooh.
So, Borderlands 2 v Subpar Lover dropping this week. Timed access via patreon.com/We Are 8bit, but will be available free of charge the following week right here on the Hungry Gamers RSS feed as well. So if you can't support us on Patreon, fear not, it will be available to everybody the week after. And we also have a new competition going live this week. We are going to be giving away some more of that AT swag, as well as some 8bit swag. So keep your eyes peeled to twitter.com/We Are 8bit for the details for that competition. It's going to be really simple to enter. It's going to be also open to listeners and fans in Australia, New Zealand, and America, Canada. So, we are opening up the floodgates. We can send this stuff anywhere. But after that, let's get into some news.
This week's news headlines.
And the first bit of news, new gameplay of cancelled Avengers game appears. And this comes via way of Matt Purslow at IGN. 10 minutes of new footage from the cancelled first-person Avengers game has been uploaded to the internet, captured from an early build that was secured by a video game preservation community. Never heard of that term before, I must say, so that's a new one for me. This version of the Avengers game was discovered on a hard drive by obscure gamers, and the footage uploaded by Andrew Borman, the digital games curator at the Museum of Play. In the tweet above, in the video highlighted, you can see Captain America in action hurling his shield at enemy Skrulls, and the full video on YouTube also demonstrates Iron Man, Thor, and Hulk in action too. The footage is clearly taken from an early build of the game, which features sparse, undetailed levels, placeholder collectibles, and untextured enemy models. But despite the early nature of the assets, you can easily see the kind of first-person co-op brawl and gameplay that the project was working towards. This Avengers project was set to be a co-op game that would coincide with the release of the first Avengers movie, and was inspired by the Secret Invasion comic book arc, in which the Skrulls invade Earth by shapeshifting into members of society and taking their place. In the menus, we can spot several key Marvel locations as levels, including S.H.I.E.L.D.'s headquarters, the Triskelion. The game, which was in development in 2011 at THQ Studio Australia and Blue Tongue Entertainment, was eventually cancelled after THQ suffered financial troubles and was eventually forced to close. While the Avengers co-op sadly never saw completion and release, Crystal Dynamics and Square Enix are currently working on a new third-person Marvel's Avengers co-op game due to release this coming September. You'll be able to see more from the game. I'm just going to cut that little bit out there. due to release this September. So this video, yeah, it certainly doesn't win any awards from a graphical fidelity standpoint. That is for damn sure.
No.
But first person co-op developed here in Australia, check, with a little bit of that Marvel hotness thrown in, which, you know, depending on how things unfolded with THQ, if it went a different way, this game could have sold many a unit, because obviously the Avengers was a global phenomenon and a massive success at the box office and has spawned even more Avengers films and offshoots and whatnot. But what did you think? You guys check out this gameplay? Would you have be keen to play this if it dropped way back when?
No.
No. Wow. Okay.
No, the confession is that I'm actually not a big fan of the Avengers. So, like, it's definitely one game that I wouldn't have rushed out to play. And then playing, what was the game that they released and it was just essentially just button bashing? Was it Marvel something?
Ultimate Alliance.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, so after my kind of reception from that game, bad taste. So I probably definitely wouldn't have played this one.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn,
Wow.
that's some fierce hot takes. What about you, Tilby? Did this like get you thinking about, what could have been? Way back in 2011, this could have been awesome.
Yeah, look, I had an interest in it purely because it was less sort of ammo based, because obviously the footage with Captain America, you were sort of throwing the shield and using it as that sort of, you know, boomerang sort of style. I thought that was kind of cool based on the fact that you didn't have ammo. And it would have been obviously a little bit different for Iron Man because he's obviously shooting the lasers out of his hands. But that sort of style of, you know, you've got to plan things a little bit carefully so you can get your shield back, and you're working more on a brawling sort of style. It sort of meshes both of those first person and third person styles together quite well, that obviously Avengers games probably lend themselves more to a third person style. But yeah, I mean, it would have been an interesting idea, particularly if we're going off that sort of Left 4 Dead 4-player style, fend off, you know, a whole bunch of baddies idea. Whether I would have played it at the time, I don't know, because like I only sort of got into the Avengers probably around the second one, Age of Ultron, and that's when I really sort of jumped on board with it. But I mean, it certainly looks all right. Like the idea is certainly there, and whether or not, you know, like you said, whether if THQ had, you know, existed to this day, whether the full idea of it as it was intended would have seen the light of day is a different story. But yeah, look, it looked all right to me.
Yeah, I think it had some potential, that's for sure. The first person thing's a little bit weird to me because, yeah, as you said, Tilby, it's something that doesn't typically sort of go hand in hand with sort of co-op action adventure games. Like, I guess there is some shooter mechanics in this depending on who you're playing as, but it's typically that third person over the shoulder type of cam you'd be used to. And you'd think with a game like this, you'd want the characters front and center the whole time. You want to be able to have that constant 24/7 brain recognition into just seeing, you know, Hulk's hands or Iron Man's hands instead of front of you like this. Like,
yeah, it looked like with Iron Man's ones, his hands were just sort of up the whole time. It's like he doesn't do that throughout.
He's just
the
ready
movie.
to photon blast everybody. He's just
I'm
ready
a
to
mummy.
go. Yeah, but it's a shame that obviously the closure that happened with THQ and Blue Tongue Entertainment, which was a fairly predominant studio for Australia back in the day. Like, and they did do some previous Marvel games on the Wii, so they did have some experience with the franchise. I never played said Marvel game on the Wii that released a few years prior to sort of the 2011 troubles, but I guess they didn't do that bad a job if they were getting brought back into this. But yeah, luckily we don't have to wait too long to experience what the next step would be in this sort of Avengers co-op formula, because yeah, Crystal Dynamics and Square Enix have got that going. I've played some of the early alpha or beta or whatever you want to call the tech demo that they had showcased at PAX. Did you play that at all, Tilby? Did you get a chance to give that a go last year?
No, I didn't. It was a very long line, pretty much in the entire weekend, and I didn't really want to, interrupt my drinking time. But I mean, I did stop to have a bit of a look at it while people were playing, and it looks okay. Like, I mean, I didn't see too much of it, but like from the sort of style of it, sort of being over the shoulder third person, looked pretty decent, and I think that sort of lends itself a little bit better to that sort of 4-player co-op style. Whether or not it will function any well. Because we've heard all the tweets and all the public outcry about how awful it looks and how it sounds and all that sort of stuff. I'm quietly confident, but I wouldn't be surprised if people sort of, slam it for not being the MCU, because that's the only way that people will find themselves satisfied in these sort of times. But I mean, I am kind of one of those people as well. I was like, why can't Marvel vs. Capcom Ultimate have like an MCU mode where all of the Marvel characters are all just voiced by their, and likeness by their, MCU counterparts? But that's a dream of mine. That will probably never happen.
Yeah,
but yeah,
it's a shame because like I get you, and that's probably the hardest part for games fans to disconnect or like sort of release that attachment, because they immediately think of Iron Man and Captain America as Robert Downey Jr., and they can only sort of envision them as that character. So then they see generic Tony Stark XY being made by the game studios that look nothing like Robert Downey Jr. They're like, this isn't right. This is some cheap knockoff now, because they don't have that attachment that we're used to. So it is tough. Like, and the game was a little bit jarring in that regard. Like, you see Thor and it looks, obviously it's nothing like Chris Hemsworth, and the voice acting, they've gone like full like Norse god sort of style where it's like, oh, I am mighty Thor and whatever else. But like graphically it looked pretty cool. The combat was nice. I liked that there was this variety in the gameplay, whether you're playing as Thor, Iron Man, Hulk, Black Widow. They all play differently and sort of handle tasks differently. Obviously, Taskmaster is the boss that you fight at the back end of that demo as Black Widow too, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I'm curious to see what they do come September when this drops. I thought it looked good, but it's just trying to disconnect from the film franchise to the game and try and not peg Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow and whoever else as the other characters. That's the hardest part for me, trying to disconnect.
Like I definitely had issues with the Marvel vs. Capcom Tony Stark, who very clearly tried to put on the Robert Downey Jr. Style of voice acting, and it's like nails on a chalkboard. It's terrible, but that's just me.
Yeah, I think one thing that irks me still that no one talks about, just the shadow recasting of War Machine, like Terrence Howard getting culled after the first one, and Don Cheadle's a great actor, don't get me wrong, but like no one addressed it, no one talked about it at all. It just happened, and I'm like, man,
people talk about it.
What did Terrence do?
Yeah, people talk about it.
He references it in the movie when he comes in Iron Man 2. He's like, yes, I know this is weird, just let's move on about it. It's like, yes, I look different. It's like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Anyway, September, Marvel's The Avengers, done by Crystal Dynamics and Square Enix. Get keen. I can confidently say that it's not going to be a day one purchase for Miss Hart, but maybe Tilby and we will be probably picking it up and rumbling with the various characters from Marvel.
We'll have to see. I know Benny from 8-Bit is excited to grab this one and do like a co-op with the boys from 8-Bit, so we'll have to wait and see.
Something that we don't have to wait and see anymore is Sega celebrating its 60th anniversary and bringing out a Game Gear Micro to coincide with this anniversary. And this article comes via way of Martin Robinson over at Eurogamer. Word's been going around for a while that Sega's had some big news planned for this past week, and it's leading in with the announcement of a very small console, the Game Gear Micro, coming out in 4 variants in Japan to mark the 30th anniversary of Sega's only dedicated portable system. Due out on October 6th in Japan only for now, 4 variants each come with their own 4 games, meaning you have to collect all 4 to get the entire 16-game catalogue. It's a decent list, though, with developer Ancient's take on Sonic the Hedgehog, for my money, one of the very best Sonic games, leading the way on the black version of the Game Gear Micro, alongside Puyo Puyozo, Outrun, and Royal Stone, known as Crystal Warriors in the West. The yellow edition is something of a Shining Force special, with 3 of Sega's RPGs being bundled with Nazo Puyo Ale no Ru, a puzzle RPG hybrid. There's an Atlas special with the red edition giving us 2 Megami Tensei games alongside Gigi Shinobi and Columns, while the final variant offers up Sonic and Tails, the incredible puzzler Baku Baku Animal, and Sylvan Tale alongside the Game Gear port of Gunstar Heroes, which adds neat symmetry to the Game Gear Micro. As the version of Gunstar Heroes helped put developer M2 on the map. and it's M2 that's overlooking this device, just as it did with the Mega Drive Mini. This is a quirkier device with a small screen that's a mere 1 inch wide. There'll be a magnifier accessory available, but still, the Game Gear Micro does trump its predecessor in potentially offering up to 3 hours of battery life from two AAA batteries, I should say. Quite some improvement over the 1 hour from 6 AA batteries the original Game Gear provided. It's priced at 49.80 yen, which roughly translates to around 65 AUD. So you're going to be looking at like $260 Australian if you want to buy these for. And that doesn't even include import and conversions and stuff because it's only scheduled for Japan at the moment. Yeah, Sega were teasing some hype on the back of these announcements on their anniversary, and this was the thing they led off with, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah, like let's run through the checklist here. Very small, brightly coloured. Multiple games, so you've got to collect a whole bunch of them. Are we sure that these weren't supposed to be originally marketed for like a McDonald's Happy Meal? Like, there's all this, the classic tropes of being something that you'd find in like a cereal box or a Happy Meal or something. But like, interesting idea. As someone with slightly larger hands, I don't think I would ever pick one of these up because I would be squinting. You'd break it. Well, I would, possibly, but. Yeah, I also have terrible eyesight as well, so I don't want to be squinting at my games while I play them. But...
Hey, you can't. There is a magnifier on the way, so that 1 inch may become 2.2 inches.
Also, what's a magnifier? Cost? Like, because if it's a little thing, it's not going to attach to the thing. So is it like a pair of like glasses that are magnified?
Oh, can you imagine? 2 magnifying glasses just like this.
I remember like there was a whole bunch of add-ons back in the day for the Game Boy Advance that was a pretty similar magnifying glass that sort of connected onto the top and sort of flipped over and sort of was sitting maybe 5 or 6 centimeters above the Game Boy Advance, and it was a big sort of magnifying glass like that.
I remember that, baby.
Wow.
I would assume it'd be pretty similar to something like that.
Damn.
But even still, like that was very cumbersome, and I don't think something like that would be as enjoyable on something this small. So.
No.
Miss Hart, as you're the resident Sega kid and the Sonic tragic, does the little black micro at least potentially get you interested because it's got Sonic on there?
Well, one's got Sonic the Hedgehog and the other one has Sonic and Tails.
Yeah,
and I'm like, you dodgy bastards! You could have put at least both of them on the same one, but no. How do you sell multiples? So I like those 2 games. So, but it won't make me buy it. No.
You don't like it enough to drop 65 Australian dollars on one of these little Tamagotchi-looking things.
Behind the curtain of this recording, I'm wearing glasses right now. So.
But then you can go like to the 4th dimension and put magnifying glasses in front of your glasses.
She's on the grid.
I'm going to be so cool. Yeah, no, hard pass on this one. I'm already complaining about being old.
Yeah, like I'm in the same boat because it's like, yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog's really a great game that I can enjoy, but then I also like Gunstar Heroes, but it's on a completely different one of the version of the console altogether. So, like, I can understand why they've done it to sort of encourage people to buy it all, but I'm not a fan personally.
No, I like your idea of it being a $65 Happy Meal toy.
Mm-hmm. I still think the best Happy Meal toys that I can remember was the transforming Happy Meal foods. Remember they were like little Transformers, and there was the fries, the shake, the burger, and they turned into little Transformers. They were my favourites.
Closely followed by the Batman movie release of the frosted glasses.
Oh, yes.
Remember
they
those?
were phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah.
And pivoting to the KFC limited runs, remember the Looney Tunes mugs they did, where it was the Looney Tunes characters' heads?
Yeah.
Had like they were chef's kiss as well. My Tassie Devil one, I think it's still in the cupboard somewhere, but the handle's a bit janky. Just like this Game Gear Micro.
You'll have to pull it out and show it for the people on Twitter.
I will. It's a beauty. Oh no, Jeff Goldblum's fallen off my monitor.
I just want to say all the sequence of everything everyone said and then that sound. It's going to sound hilarious.
One thing that I wanted to say, sort of doubling back to this Game Gear Micro, I find it weird that they've gone the physical battery route as opposed to having like a little internal battery you could charge via USB.
Who has batteries anymore?
Like 2 AAA batteries to put into it. I know maybe they're trying to stay on brand. Like this thing used to take 6 AA's for the full-size Game Gear. But yeah, have a little internal battery you could charge. Or maybe you have to buy like Sega-specific AAA batteries only or something, and maybe they're doing a further cash grab. Who knows?
Yeah, it's weird. Like, small is out. Like, things haven't been small for, you know, maybe 5 or 6 years in a serious sense. Like, if anything, wouldn't you go even bigger? Like, that seems to be in now as a younger person in today's society. Game Gear Macro or something.
I mean, they're just like, you know, trying to cling on to all those people that bought the micro Nintendos and micro Mega Drive. What were they called? Minis? Were they called minis? The ones
Classic minis and things.
Yeah, the Mega Drive Mini, SNES Mini, PlayStation. I've got 2 of those 3 you've mentioned here, so I can't say too much.
God, if they make a Nintendo 64 one, no, I'm sorry. I'm in. I'm fully in.
Depends what they have on it. I miss my 64.
True. I mean, the PlayStation 1 wasn't great, and even then I was still like, ooh, Tekken 3, considering.
I haven't even powered either of them up. I have the SNES and the PlayStation 1, and they're both just sitting on a shelf somewhere in here. I haven't even powered them up.
2 SNESes, and one of them was like holding a door open or something. I remember.
That's very true. It was a door chock for a while there. Oh, well. Love you, SNES. All right. So the next bit of news I wanted to sort of bring to the table today. The ACCC fined Sony $3.5 million over digital refunds. And this comes via way of Tegan Jones at Kotaku. Australia's federal court has handed Sony Europe a $3.5 million fine for making false and misleading representations to Australians regarding their digital refunds and their Australian consumer law rights. The case began in May 2019 when the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, aka the ACCC, announced its intentions to take Sony Europe to court. Sony has now been found guilty of misleading 4 customers who were told by a customer service representative that Sony was not required to refund games when they had been downloaded, or if 14 days had passed since its purchase. Sony Europe has admitted liability and will also be contributing to the ACCC's legal costs. Consumer guarantee rights do not expire after digital product has been downloaded and certainly do not disappear after 14 days or any other arbitrary date claimed by a game store or developer, ACCC Chair Rod Sims said in a statement. The federal court also stated that Sony Europe was in breach of Australian consumer law by telling these customers between October 2017 and May 2019 that a refund did not need to be provided if the game developer hadn't authorized it. Another separate customer had been told that Sony Europe would only provide a refund in virtual PlayStation currency. Consumers can obtain a repair, replacement, or refund directly for products with a major fault from sellers and simply cannot be sent to a product developer, said Sims. Refunds under the consumer guarantees must also be written in cash or money transfer if the consumer originally paid in one of those ways, unless the consumer chooses to receive store credit, Sims said. According to the ACCC, Sony's Europe's terms of service during this time period also implied that consumer guarantee rights did not extend to digital games. Consumers who buy digital products online have exactly the same rights as they would if they made the purchase at a physical store, Sims said. Sims also reiterated that regardless of a company's headquarters, ACL applies whenever Australians are being sold to. Whenever Australians are being sold to. The ACCC successfully fined Valve $3 million for similar ACL violations back in 2016. The company failed to advertise its refund policy on Steam between 2011 and 2014 and also refused to provide refunds. This case spanned several years and eventually ended up in the High Court. So my goodness, the ACCC, they don't fuck around. Like, I don't sort of keep my eyes too firmly on the other justice systems around the world in regards to video games, but like, from my mind, Australia seems to be one of the leaders in trying to make these various companies accountable for their potential sort of grey area business operations. So $3.5 million is no joke.
No.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting because it now sort of creates that slippery slope for people wanting returns for, people might view something as faulty and someone, might, or the developers themselves might say, this isn't a fault. It might be one thing to say, look, I want a refund for WWE 2K20 because it's busted to all hell. But, it's a little bit different to say, well, there's a glitch in my game. I just want to return it back. And, who's gonna be that independent party who's going to look at that and determine what's what? So it's interesting that they're sort of doing this now. Like you said, they did it to Valve, and I know now that people can get refunds on Steam, but yeah, it's an interesting way to look at things for PlayStation users.
Yeah, and they also ruled earlier this week regarding refunds for Fallout 76. So they've sort of pushed some stuff down the channel where EB Games have to provide cash-based refunds for Fallout 76. I'm still debating if I go do the pushback and get that. Obviously, you can see my power armor helmet sort of sitting here in the background.
Where's the bag?
My canvas bag is in the cupboard there. It's
by the cupboard, you mean trash?
Yeah,
right?
it's right next to the bin. Yeah, no, I need to keep it out of principle after hearkening on about it for so long.
That's the new door propper.
Yeah, it's right there with the SNES Mini. So, yeah, Miss Hart, what do you think about this? Like, this is another big power play from the ACCC.
I just want to double check. Is it based on like a broken game, or is it also that kind of like, oh, I wasn't happy with this game?
They don't go into from my understanding and sort of doing some digging around, it was they just weren't happy with it. So the game wasn't to the standard of these four people that have put these various cases forward. But I'm curious to sort of know regarding the Sony representative, like from their customer service department that said that, I wonder how hard the hammer has gone down on them for this, because they're the ones that sort of are getting named here for naming, like providing this misleading information in air quotes, but it's probably pushed down the channel from their boss.
Yeah.
The dev team of No Man's Sky breathing a collective sigh of relief that this came out when it did, because like if this had come out when they just released that game, they probably wouldn't be in business anymore, I would suspect.
That's true. I mean, they brought up Steam here. Now, Steam has the policy that you can return a game, like, I guess no questions asked, as long as you don't go over a certain amount of hours, right? Mm-hmm. Like they have usually a policy.
Which I think that's fair.
I think that's fair too, because this is where I'm getting at, where if the ACCC starts really, pounding down on these like companies, then they're like, no, you've got to give the refund. You've got to follow these standards. If it's just a person saying like, I'm just not happy with the game, it wasn't what I was expecting. Could you imagine how many people will buy like AAA games, play them through and go, you know what, didn't like it, returned.
Just like you do with physical at EB Games. You got that 7-day no questions asked return policy. You buy it, you smack it out in 7 days, you take it back. Oh, what's wrong?
I can't believe all these years. This is what the Hungry Gamers still preaches.
Yeah, that's
don't give them those
Turbo
ideas,
style
guys.
right there.
Oh gosh, yeah, no, like I definitely think I'm glad that there was a focus on like why is purchasing a game digitally not followed in the same standards as a physical copy. I always thought that was a bit weird. Like it's the exact same thing, but
yeah, purchase is a purchase, right?
Yeah, and I know like if you're buying it in a store, obviously the store has their own policies as well, but I mean in the end, like yeah, like a customer's entitled to, like, especially if the game's broken, like that's just dodgy as. And I'm so glad we talked about Fallout.
It also like changes it as well when it is a digital only release as well, so like those sorts of games are a little bit more open to being created by an indie developer, and sometimes they may not be up to the sort of physical standpoint as say like a AAA game as well. So those sorts of games have to be up to the same sort of, I guess, critical purchaser standpoint as a boxed game, one that you'd find at EB or JB. So
it's true.
I can understand that they want to cover all their bases with all of their game purchases.
What happened with Anthem? Why didn't a bunch of people complain about Anthem?
Yeah, maybe they're just not complaining loud enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, well. God, I wouldn't mind my money back from Anthem. That's for damn sure.
Well, you can use that to prop up your door. You've got a lot to prop up your door now.
Yeah, no matter how strong the wind is outside, it ain't moving. That's for sure. With all my props, but yeah, it's crazy to see. But one thing I'm curious about is that $3.5 million. Where does that money go for one? Like, is that like there was the four? They mentioned 4 customers were misled. Are they getting paid damages on top of the cost of returning No Man's Sky or whatever it is, or do they just get their $99 cash credit back, or are they going to get, a portion of this 3.5 million? Obviously, they're not going to get 6 figures or things like that. But where's this money going apart from, I guess, to the governments and things like that? Like, that's one thing I'm always curious about. This is where does this $3 million worth of fine go?
Yeah,
where do they distribute that cash?
You go to the ACCC and they represent you essentially like free of charge, right? Like that's what they are. They're a government body and they're meant to represent you as a consumer. So maybe they got their money back, but I don't think they got like any kind of extra chunk of change. That's the government's, right?
Yeah. You just know that some of these customers are emotional duress and all this because they're stressed that the customer service representative didn't address their needs and talk to them in a wrong tone, and now they can't work anymore. And
7 years of
they've
retail,
lost passion for gaming and blah blah blah. Like,
heard it all.
Thanks, son's crying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, I'd love to know where that money goes and how it gets distributed. But yeah, the ACCC just coming in strong again. Like, against Valve and Sony are 2 of the largest gaming companies in the entire world, and between the 2 of them, the ACCC's now got $6.5 million out of them. So, damn,
Good use.
100%. And the last bit of sort of news or topic or point of discussion that we wanted to bring to the table here for the Hungry Game Show episode 197. It's a little bit of a shift in tone. Obviously, you heard sort of the pre-recorded sort of battle cry that we put at the start of this episode, just outlining how we feel on things. And obviously, you might have seen some of our discussion and thoughts on the social medias. So this last bit of content comes via way of Hayden Taylor over at gamesindustry.biz. And the article headline reads, Games Industry speaks out in support of black communities amid violence in the US. Members of the games industry have voiced their support for Black Lives Matter after the US was hit by the worst race riots since 1960. Peaceful demonstrations across North America turned violent this past week as protests against police brutality were met with a very heavy-handed response. Scenes of violence dominated social media over the week and the weekend as the police used rubber bullets and tear gas on demonstrators and journalists alike. I hope you fucking hear me when I say this. These people are rioting because they have not been heard before now, said popular streamer Benjamin Dr. Lupo during a live stream over the weekend. This has been going on for fucking years. When people go unheard, that's when rioting happens. The protests erupted over the weekend in response to the death of George Floyd, a 46-year-old African-American who was killed while in police custody. The incident ignited lingering tensions and opened old wounds, drawing into sharp focus the legacy of police brutality against minorities. Among those offering words of support to the movement are Riot Games, Sony, Microsoft, Naughty Dog, Nintendo, Epic, Valve, Ninja, and several esports organizations including Cloud9 and Team SoloMid, just to name a few. Addressing employees on Friday, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella said, "Our identity, our very existence is rooted in empowering everyone on the planet. So therefore, it's incumbent upon us to use platforms, our resources, to drive that systemic change, right? That's the real challenge here. It's not just any one incident, but it's all the things that have led to the incident and absolutely need change." Furthermore, Microsoft and Xbox have begun to highlight Black and African Americans that work within the company, aiming to amplify their voices. Sony has been very vocal, postponing their impending PlayStation 5 reveal event while also challenging people who attempt to justify or minimize systemic racism. In response to one commenter who simply posted #AllLivesMatter, Sony said, "All lives will not matter until Black Lives Matter." Sony is also matching donations made by employees at its subsidiary studio Naughty Dog. Meanwhile, EA Sports has postponed an announcement regarding Madden NFL 21. a series with deep ties to American culture and the black community through the high number of black American sports stars that feature on its teams. The Black Lives Matter movement was deeply linked to former NFL player Colin Kaepernick and his decision to kneel during the national anthem that precedes each game. We'll find another time to talk football with you, read the statement from the Madden NFL Twitter account, because this is bigger than a game, bigger than sports, and need all of us to stand together and commit to change. Pulling this back to a local level, in Australia, there has been 432 Aboriginal deaths in custody since the Royal Commission in 1991. So, this is huge. Obviously, the entire world is watching. The entire world, I guess saying being made aware is not the right words to use here, because I think most people have been very much aware of the situation regarding racism to minorities and the black culture across the globe for many years. But it seems like with the situation and with the tragic passing of George Floyd, it is now thrown under a global microscope for probably the first time, at least in my lifetime. I can't remember it being sort of amplified with this amount of noise and focus and unity, which is one thing I love to see. And it's nice seeing various personalities, developers, publishers, all stepping forward and saying their piece and throwing their support behind the Black Lives Matter movement. Hopefully it's more than just words. I'd like to see some more action. Obviously, it's still very new. This has only been at the forefront for the past 7 to 10 days now. So hopefully we see some actions come out of this, and it's great to see all these donations getting sort of shifted towards various charities and organizations to help people. But my goodness, it is a melting pot out there, and it needs to change.
100%. And you're right. It's good that they're acknowledging it and giving it a platform so that it's front and center, so it's in people's faces and that they are made aware. But it's also very important that there's follow through, because it's needed. This isn't just a once a day, once a week, 1 week in a month kind of thing. This needs to happen constantly. This needs to be front and center. This needs to be in everyone's minds, and the change needs to happen. So it's good that, our community has our representatives that are going out and, pushing that message forward, and also taking a stand to people that kind of want to, neg the positivity that's meant to be coming from it and the change that needs to come from it. So it's good that they're taking that stand as well.
100%. What's your thoughts on this, Tilby?
It's tough. Like I have a lot of friends who are in the US and have been fighting very vocally for the justice for these people, and not only for them, it's fighting against that sort of police brutality, and it sort of does filter into games quite a bit, because we sometimes we are a bit desensitized to some of it. Games like Grand Theft Auto and even Red Dead sort of we're pretty vocal about this sort of stuff, and it also filters through because there's a lot of content creators and people in the games industry who probably do feel quite strongly about it. But I just hope that a lot of this isn't just, to get Twitter likes or some respect. And I hope it's not as hollow as it seems. Like, someone like Ninja who's posted about it, like you'll go through his comments and people will, post up something that he said, 2 or 3 years ago, where it's a racial slur. Like it does seem like people are trying to do that to harbor some sort of genuine, I guess, not clout, but like popularity is not the right word either, but like they're trying to generate some good feeling from it, when it's you've got to do more. Like Ali said it right, like it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to continually do it and sort of, keep that sort of positive movement going. This can't stop, after a month or so, when it all will, sadly, inevitably die down. This has to keep going, and it has to see some, actual physical change. And for companies like Microsoft and Sony who are making these donations, it's a good start. I think, donating to these causes like Black Lives Matter and the NAACP, who are, fighting against these causes pretty strongly, it's going to be tough. But I think that sort of physical change and bringing those those black content creators and people in the games industry forward is also another really positive step. And I wish it wasn't because of a tragedy or something that happened.
Yeah.
You know, like the death of George Floyd shouldn't be the catalyst to bring them forward. This should have been happening, you know, months, maybe even years ago. But look, it's certainly a small step forward. It's difficult for us because 8-Bit is, you know, pretty much a predominantly Caucasian sort of podcasting collective. So, you know, we're open to the support. Like the support, we're going to be supporting as much as we can. But I can only say as much as I can. But yeah, look, it's a slippery slope. But I think there's positive signs being made.
100%. And I think the biggest thing, at least like from sort of my perspective with this whole situation, it's things that, as I've said sort of in the lead off, we've always been aware of some of these things going on, but now's the time to take the time to do the research and educate yourself and learn about what's going on. Like there's a great quote here I've just sort of seen, and it says, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. I think that sort of encompasses it really well. Like take the time to understand the situation, not only abroad, but locally here in Australia. Like we've had a lot of this type of shit going on for a good long time, but it gets no coverage. You watch the mainstream media, and obviously they can spin stories in whichever way they like and present press positively or negatively depending on the topic. So try and find that independent news source. And you know, we poo-poo on social media a lot, but Twitter's been great in that regard because you're seeing a lot of footage and a lot of live feedback on the ground in these situations that's unfiltered. So you're not going to get the media spin that's going to cut it a certain way to sort of try and implement somebody as the victim, or they're the culprit for copping the violence that you were seeing time in and time out. Like it's clear there's a systemic problem with law enforcement across the world. Like you see these people that, you know, there's a lot of good police officers and people in the military and things, don't get me wrong, they do great. But there is some of these bad people that get in there, maybe just because they have this sort of bully complex, or they just want to get in and use this power to abuse and flex and unleash some of that violence that's clearly part of their DNA, and they need to be held accountable. So hopefully now we're seeing that, obviously, with the officers in Minnesota are all getting charged now. So I think things like that is a step in the right direction, getting the murder charge upgraded again, which I think's fantastic. And yeah, they just need to keep this at the forefront, not only now, but a month down the line, a year down the line, 10 years down the line. Like this can't keep happening. Like there was the LA riots in the early 90s, and then obviously hearkening back to the 60s and things like this is things that just keep occurring. So we just need to be better out there. Like we're all the same. We all deserve the same rights. We all deserve the same freedoms, and we all deserve to feel safe. That's the biggest thing.
The riots, like you can argue like they're not the right thing, and there's that fine line between whether it is a protest or a riot. But the signs are there that the protests have been working. Like there's news that government officials in Minnesota are actively looking to disband the Minnesota PD like entirely and create some sort of new public service to help the citizens of Minnesota. So like it's clear that this sort of stuff is going a long way, but like you said, it has to keep going. This can't be a flash in the pan situation. They've got to keep going with it. And you know, it's tough to talk about this sort of stuff on a gaming centric podcast, but
yeah,
sometimes this sort of stuff is unfortunately bigger than gaming. And you know, fair play to people like Sony who have been, you know, trying to dig through the absolute hell that is their comment section for people who feel so entitled that, you know, their newfangled, you know, console isn't going to be shown off to the world on the day that they expected it. And there was they responded to a tweet, and they basically said, look, our stock can be replaced. Can a human life be replaced? And that really rang true to me. So yeah, it's a tough time, but I think we just need to keep our foot on the pedal, if anything.
100%. And it just needs to be more than words, as Ali put so well at the start of this sort of discussion piece. Yeah, we need to see actions, because it doesn't take long to look at some of the history of various personalities in the gaming space or publishers and developers and see where they haven't handled things like this correctly. Like the biggest one, obviously EA Sports with Madden and the whole situation with Colin Kaepernick, where he was pretty much cut from the NFL off the back of this, and then they like edited his name out in songs that were tied to previous NFL entries in the franchise, saying that it was like a licensing error that they sort of misread, and like all that shit. Just own it, like step up. And it's the same as the NFL. Like the NFL coming out now and saying we support you, and it's like, mate, you were trying to sort of almost issue fines to your black players for kneeling during the national anthem, and now it's like we got you back. It's like, fuck off.
Yeah, like it's pretty similar to, I think Activision and Blizzard sort of made that sort of statement on Twitter, like we support this sort of movement, and then people are obviously and very correctly making that statement like, didn't you just suspend a Hearthstone player for being pro Hong Kong? Like you can't have one thing and then do another.
Yeah,
you've got to be fully on board with this the entire way through, and that was sort of what I was alluding to with the whole ninja thing. Was like, you can't just say it for the sake of saying it. You've got to actually mean it. So that's the difficulty with all that sort of stuff in the gaming sphere. But like companies as well are sort of implementing it into their games as well in a particularly meaningful way. Like I know you and I, Brendan, both play a lot of NBA 2K. Like they suspended their online services for 2 hours with a in memoriam sort of I guess page for George Floyd, and they were giving out shirts for their created characters in the neighborhood. One was saying justice, one was saying I can't breathe. Like they were making it pretty positively known that they were against this tragedy, and even obviously Rockstar, because 2K and Rockstar are both owned by Take-Two, so they were obviously able to do the same thing. They shut down all of their GTA and Red Dead servers for 2 hours to sort of pay their respects. So there are different ways to do it. Thankfully, it's not so. It's very off the cuff, but it's very beneficial, and there are plenty of ways that we can show our support.
100%, and I think that starts with educating yourselves as well. So as I said, just take the time. Don't just believe the first thing you see on the internet or on the news. Just sit there, do the research. There is plenty of fantastic voices out there from all walks of life that have phenomenal insight and facts and hard truths. And some of it will be hard to read and hard to watch. Like it is very jarring, but I think it's what you need to do here to get a wider understanding of what's happening and at least try to grasp some of the situation, because obviously, as you said, Tilby, we're all predominantly white Caucasians here at 8-Bit, so we can't be directly placed in these people's shoes, but we can try and at least somewhat understand to a degree. Like, don't be ignorant. Take the time to research, understand the situation, then do what you can to help. Like, just be better. I think that's the easiest thing here is be better, treat others as you'd want to be treated. It's the age-old thing you've heard from when you're a toddler to now. You treat others like you want to be treated. I think that's some of the easiest ways to sort of convey this situation. But yeah, just plenty of fantastic voices out there to get much better breakdowns on this as well. So be sure to be aware and do the research, and comb the socials. There's countless links, and we'll try and chuck some in the show notes here for where you can do a bit more research on. But that's been the news. So let's pivot.
Tweet of the week.
And this tweet comes via handle @SpawnOnMe. They are a podcast and content creator outlet over there in the USA. And the tweet itself reads, I share this not to try and flex, but to say that you can do content that bucks the status quo, does good for the world, inspires your people, and is black as fuck all at the same time. Do that shit with no compromises. So, and then there was sort of a screen grab of their sort of recent Twitch stream history. So Spawn on Me, they're sort of a small to medium-sized outfit, obviously representing the black community in a fantastic light. And they've been sort of getting a lot of various voices from the gaming space on there to have open conversations. So be sure to check out @SpawnOnMe on Twitter and find their most recent episodes, because I watched their most recent one just yesterday. It goes for about 3 hours, and it's fantastic insight from people that are living this day in and day out. But it was really nice to see that, like, they're unique viewers. They're up plus 254,000 since their previous stream. Like, they're up another 70 subs. They're up countless amounts of live views and chatters. Like, people want to know and people want to get educated. And it's creators like this, like at Spawn on Me on the Twitters, which is a great start point to get an understanding and get some fresh, clear perspective. So shout out to at Spawn on Me. Be sure to check them out. Listen to their podcast. Watch their content on Twitch. Yeah,
100%. Like, they were lucky enough to be given the front page. And, you know, being on the front page is obviously, as great as it is, it's obviously, you know, front and center for all parties. But they held strong and they, you know, put their content forward, and it's been great. Like, it's been great getting their opinions across, which is extremely important. Like, it's important to learn, but it's very important to listen. So well done to the team, because it's definitely needed.
Yeah, same again. I just hope it's something that isn't going to be, you know, people just going there to learn and then they leave again. I hope it's they find that continued and you know, lengthy sort of prosperous success, so that they can, you know, keep these sorts of things going, because those sorts of causes and those sorts of people doing those sorts of things is so good for a Twitch community that has always had that sort of notion of being kind of toxic and a little bit sort of unfair for people who don't sort of fit that sort of idea of what it is to be a Twitch streamer. So this is always very positive stuff. So yeah, well into them.
100%. At Spawn on Me on Twitter, and check them out. But as I said, just be aware there's so many other great content creators doing good things and sharing fantastic insight on this situation or the situation they've been living since their birth. So it's really, really insightful. So yeah, just take the time, do the research. And last part of the pod coming up right now.
New releases and events.
So this is where we're going to talk about things that are coming up this next calendar week, whether it be new games coming out, new things we want to see or watch. The release list isn't too deep. The one that I wanted to highlight, it's actually released the week prior on PC, but it's releasing on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and that's the next Elder Scrolls Online expansion, which is Greymoor, which comes out on June the 9th. But outside of that, there isn't really anything else that I've got coming up this week that I can think of that I'm looking forward to, anything new. I know some of my local restaurants are opening up again, so I'm excited to go get some burgers from various places like Monday. Shout out Mondays. I love you guys. But Miss Hart, what about you? Anything you got coming up this week? Anything that's on your radar?
Nothing too much. I guess I'm just going to keep watching a bunch of TV, and, you know, I might watch Cobra Kai.
On YouTube?
I haven't watched it yet. Yeah, so it's on YouTube, so I might actually catch up on Cobra Kai.
I haven't watched a single episode of it, to be honest.
Yeah, me neither.
Last YouTube series or thing I watched through YouTube was the Machinima Mortal Kombat spin-off they did.
Good.
Yep.
So good.
It was on free to air this past week at like 10:30 at night. Watch the whole thing again. So good. So crap, but so good.
What about you, Matt?
Man, nothing this week. Look, I think it's going to be just a prep week for The Last of Us 2 coming out next week. I've heard the consternation from Ali not really being particularly enthralled with the game coming out, but the first one was a big game for me from the last generation, probably that and LA Noire were sort of like the two big games that really sort of stood out for me on the Xbox 360 and the PS3. So yeah, I've been patiently waiting. I've somehow managed to steer clear of spoilers, knock on wood. It's going to be one of those ones where I close the door, I sit down, lights off, and just sort of immerse myself in it. Yeah, I can't wait. But yeah, there's nothing really this week that has really sort of scratched my itch. I think I'll just be jumping back into more Void Bastards and more sort of Borderlands to continue on with that.
Not going to hit any more dingers?
Oh, you know I try. I try my best. It's a little difficult, but I'll try my best.
Do you prefer trying to be like the ace pitcher, or do you want to be the home run king?
Oh, now you've put me on a bit of a pedestal there, or on a bit of a spot. I love a good pitcher. You know, if you can pitch a nice breaking ball and confuse the batter with a bit of a curve ball or a knuckleball, it's always pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Ali just looks so confused. She's
No, I'm just thinking this has been the most sports-centric episode that we've probably
yes. Success.
Winning. Yeah, so, Greymore's coming out this week. I'm half interested to get back into it. I like the Elder Scrolls Online. On the PC, my character's not too high level. On Xbox One, as I've said a few times on this pod, it's like veteran rank 6, so I'm pretty deep on the Xbox path, but I think I want to keep persisting with PC, and this is more vampire-y, and it also sort of weaves in some of the threads from Skyrim, which is kind of cool, which is one thing that's got me intrigued about it. So when they're going to try and start interweaving some of that story and content into ESO, I'm like, okay, maybe I need to get back on this horse, and maybe I'm just going to play more Apex Legends until The Last of Us 2 comes out. So yeah, check back next week to see which way I went. Spoilers, it's probably the Apex way.
Apex, right?
All right, and the last little thing I want to mention, Overcooked, which was done by Ghost Town Games. It's currently free on the Epic Game Store until June the 11th. So anyone that hasn't got that crazy co-op cooking extravaganza, sign up to the Epic Game Store and you can get a free copy from now until June the 11th. Obviously, Overcooked 2 is out and it's also equally as fantastic. But you want something to distract yourself. Maybe you're still in that COVID-19 situation. It's a great little couch co-op game you could be playing with your friends or your family, or you could be playing online as well. So Overcooked, free on the Epic Game Store until June the 11th. But yeah, this has been episode 197 of the Hungry Gamers podcast. Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on here at the satellite version of the Hungry HQ. Hope you are doing well here now, my Brisbane neighbour. Welcome back to the sunny state.
Yeah, I moved back pretty much the day the borders closed. So I got in just in time. So last plane into Brisbane. But I'm back for now. We'll see how things go. But yeah, it was an absolute blast hanging out with you guys today.
Mate, pleasure is all ours. Miss Hart, anything else you want to say before we say goodbye?
Yes, check out the new Run the Jewels album. It just released.
Oh, it's so good. Oh.
I'll be giving that a spin just after this podcast wraps, maybe after I make another coffee because I am tired as fuck. But yeah, be sure to follow us all as a collective at We Are 8-Bit. Miss Ali Hart can be found at Miss Ali Hart. I can be found at Brendan 8-Bit. And Matt can be found at It's Tilby on the socials. But Matty, thank you for stopping on by. Be safe out there, people. Be aware. And until next time, 8-Bit Nation, when we return for episode 198 of the Hungry Games podcast. Much love.
Stay hungry.
You've been listening to The Hungry Gamers, one of many gaming and geek culture related podcasts from the 8-Bit Collective over on 8bit.net. Check out more episodes on your podcast service of choice. And while you're there, please be sure to rate and subscribe. Until next time, boys and girls, stay hungry.
Do you think I should bid on this autographed photo of Jeff Goldblum with his shirt off from Jurassic Park? I think I need this for my wall.
I want it.